Good evening, everybody. With it being 6:30 on Tuesday, October 8th, 2019, I will call this meeting of the WPS School Committee to order and ask that we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio. First item on the agenda is the approval of the September 24th, 2019 minutes, unlike the 3019 that's listed in the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. We will pass over the July 16, 2019 executive session minutes for this meeting. And next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Good evening, Dr. Gogan.
Good evening, everyone. How are you tonight?
We're doing well, I believe.
Wonderful. I have a lengthy report tonight. I'm going to start with personnel updates. I'd like to inform you that Melissa Coffey has been hired as the grade 4 long-term sub, and Kerry Lavelle has been hired as a paraprofessional at Park Ave Elementary School. Miss Deborah Zablocki has moved into the interim dean position effective October 2nd, and we're thrilled with that. And I would also like to let you know that we have received the resignation from James Rakowski as the PAE custodian. Second on my updates, I'd like to fill you in on my trip to Immokalee. I went down to the Immokalee Foundation with Representative James McKenna and Bill Frederickson, a representative from Senator Fatman's office, to take a look at the Immokalee Foundation's work around career and college exploration and how they are utilizing their partnerships with the school and the community and the businesses, Florida Gulf Coast and the IT College, and they are doing some beyond incredible work to help students recognize their own aspirations starting in an early age in 6th grade. I had two very full days of meeting with leaders in multiple organizations. It was completely nonstop. Some of what we learned we can certainly take back and apply. The timing is kind of right for us because we're looking at what we're going to do with student programming at Bartlett High School for the future. As you know, we're in the eligibility period for renovating Bartlett, and we sort of have to have a visionary plan on how the building is going to match innovative programming. So they do something called academies within the schools. I met the superintendent of the Collier County schools. I met the principal of the Immokalee High School. Right next to Immokalee High School is the IT College. Immokalee is a very rural community where they're servicing migrant students, and the Immokalee Foundation has been in existence for probably 30 years. And what they do for students is they work with them beginning in 6th grade and give them a mentor and a teacher mentor, and they give them opportunities to explore careers through after-school work and summer programming at colleges around STEAM and STEM. And from 6th grade to 12th grade, kids are given multiple opportunities, and they're not dropped out of the program if their grades drop down. They're given supports. And then they're followed through to college, and their college is paid for. So it's sounds simple, but it's very complex. There are over 3,000 students in the Immokalee community, and over the past 8 years, the district itself has been working with the Immokalee Foundation, has been able to increase the graduation rates from 72% to 96%. Many of the families in Immokalee are migrant workers working in tomato packing plants, and so they don't really have any concept of college or career readiness. So right now, they're serving over 800 elementary students, and the kids that are in the high school are working with the elementary kids and teaching them to read, like going into the schools like I saw you today. There's 102 middle school students that are learning about different careers. I was able to observe the kids in an after-school program. And then the high school students are guided in different pathways. And they believe that starting to talk about college at your junior year is way too late. And they have a program where kids are actually getting paid to do their internships and then moving into college. They had some incredible programming. Kids are looking at business management, engineering, education, health career fields. They also have a program where Caterpillar Tractors is located near Immokalee, and they have sponsored a program to train high school students to fix the Caterpillar equipment. And because the IT college is right across the street from the high school, kids are able to go over across there. And students are actually leaving high school and able to make $80,000 as mechanical engineers. And I met with the owner of the Lipton Farms, and they're moving the kids that go through this program from hands-on jobs. Within 2 years, they're managers in whatever corporation that they're working. So they're quite successful at helping children discover their talents. And I could go on for hours about some of the tips that I learned through their school system, and many of the things that they're doing were cost-free. So, sharing best practices, I know I will be in constant communication with them as we're developing new programming and new options. So it was well worth the trip, and I'm pleased to share that opportunity with you. Next on any questions about that before I move on? Next on my list, I'd just like to let you know that we are definitely keeping up the two-way communication. As you know, we have the WEA monthly meetings, and those are going very well. And I am also starting up the Superintendent's Educators Council. We're meeting again on October 17th. I do want to let you know that we had a very successful October 2nd Professional Development Day, and the agendas are quite filled and attached for your review. Some of our highlights at Bartlett, there was the continuation of Deb Brady's work on increasing student discourse through accountable talk. We had, as I have mentioned before, the National Alliance of Mental Illness come in to work and give a presentation to staff over at the Webster Middle School. They gave 4 different perspectives on how mental illness impacts a student, an educator, a parent, and a clinician. And I was not there, but they did tell me that that was very powerful. They will be coming back and giving small presentations to our students in grades 6, 7, and 8 in their health class as a follow-up. And these are free services that we signed up for. And at Park Avenue, they did a full day of ST math training. And our administrators also had some PD yesterday. We had our Looney consultants come in and work specifically with our administrators on look-fors with our new math programs, how to support our teachers with the implementation, but actually what should they be seeing when they walk into a classroom. So we had a 2.5-hour training in this room. As you know, we're pretty passionate about our work that we're doing around curriculum and instruction. It's the core of what we do here. And I wanted to let you know some of the additional resources that our teachers have gotten this year. This year over at Park Avenue Elementary School, our teachers have been all given anchoring books for the math work that we're doing. Park Ave has a book called 5 Steps to Implementing Guiding Math and Learning Stations and Reflection and More. The middle school has a book called The 5 Practices in Practice, Successful Orchestration of Mathematics and Discussions in Your Middle School Classroom. And the high school has 2 books. One is called Principles to Actions, Ensuring Mathematical Success for All, and 5 Practices for Orchestrating Productive Mathematics Discussions. Additional resources that have been given out this year. It's sometimes like Christmas. for our teachers. They have been given, all fourth grade teachers received the Write Again Student Place Values practice mats, and in addition to all the manipulatives that were given out last year. And the middle school, they all received a classroom set of the CPM CC3 books with the ebooks. This is for the new 8th grade honors class. And at Bartlett High School, they received a classroom set of the CPM Algebra 1 books with the ebook access for the additional teacher who is teaching Algebra 1 this year. And Bartlett High School also received 2 additional large algebra tile kits and some robotics-related Texas Instrument calculators, and some tables and chairs for collaborative work in the classroom. The list goes on. I'm not going to continue to read the list. So my point is I want you to know that there's ongoing support and ongoing resources being given to our teachers so that they can find success with teaching. On some other updates, I would like to let you know that our district leadership team met and analyzed the MCAS data with some of our SSOS members from the state. We have turned in the educational questionnaire for our MSBA eligibility period. And I want to stress that this is the very beginning of creating the vision of what we want the renovation project to resemble 4 years down the road, and how we want to tie that into innovative learning pathways for our kids. And I felt it was very important to get our teachers involved in that process. And they were involved in that process, and it's the beginning of a longer conversation. So my goal is to continue that collaborative conversation about what's Bartlett, what is the vision, so that whether you're a teacher or a custodian, an administrator, or a superintendent or the school committee, you actually know what's going on, so that when people in the community ask you about this project, you can speak fluidly about it. So there was a little bit of a method behind that madness, and we're hoping to keep that up. We had 4 successful lockdown drills on October 4th, and I say 4 because the central office was also included. And I want to give a public shout out to our Webster Police, our Webster Fire, and EMS. We had the biggest team that we have had in 3 years come and help us with lockdown drills, and it was a very successful day. The purpose of our drills is to practice, but also to debrief and recognize where we can do something better and have that conversation so that we can continue to be prepared. Am I going too fast? No. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about our community partnerships, which we continue to strive to make stronger. Our MAFRE partnerships, I talked to you a little bit about this program called the Real Madrid program, where they have people from Spain come to work with students, a small population of students, to teach them either basketball or soccer. And I've been working with our athletic director and the principal of the high school and MAFRE, and we were not able to complete the paperwork in time, nor did we think that we were going to have gym space for this during this coming season. So we had asked them to kind of push it off until next year, and we just received an email that they're very anxious to help us and want this program to be in effect. So we're looking to start it this spring with basketball. So I am going to continue to work to get that paperwork filled with the athletic director and the principal at the high school. I don't know if I told you, but last year I did the Best Buddies bike race. I rode 50 miles, first time ever experience for me, but I made it, and I was able to walk the next day. But when I was there, I ran into a former student of mine from a school where I was a principal, and her mom. And her mom actually works for the Best Buddies organization. And it is a really small world, because I told her where I was, and she says, oh, I sometimes work with MAFRE on a Best Buddies mentoring program. So her name is Sherry Dean, and we are beginning to partner, and we're hoping to get our high school students involved in a mentoring program at Mafre, where they're helping their students. She's coming in next week to meet with myself and the principal. And I'd also like to let you know, through our partnership with Mafre, Boston Children's Hospital is coming back again. They will be starting at the middle school and doing a safety lesson for a safety assembly, and then they'll be going to Park Avenue Elementary School and working class by class by class by class, which is remarkable for the amount of classrooms that we have at Park Ave. So I want to publicly thank Mafre for their continued support of our students and programming. Another partnership that is sprung off of our Mafre is we have a parent, not a parent, a community member, and her name is Jill St. Cyr. She is also a local business owner, and she is starting a pilot Christmas program to help students in need. I believe she does it in Worcester, and so she's trying to do it in Webster as well. So I've been in contact with our guidance counselors, and they are in the beginning phases of collecting names and items that there will be no names associated with it. And she'll be coming in and meeting with our counselors so that we can, once again, help our families during the holiday season. I also want to let you know that a new MOU has been signed with U Inc. for this year. We have counselors, therapists at each school, and I will be going tomorrow. They are opening a career center in downtown Webster for students that are 16 to 24 years old for some career supports. So I'll be going to that grand opening. And just a couple more things. We're just a little busy. The DSAC, formerly known as DSAC, the SSOS team from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, have provided us additional funds for additional support with Looney Math. Originally, they had given us about $11,000 more support, and I was just notified that they are going to up that by another $8,300 for a total of $19,400, so that we can have Looney Math come in and focus on those areas where we have deficits with our teachers, and more of a coaching model, and any other turnaround efforts that we feel that we need. So that was a very good news. And lastly, I'd just like to let you know that Kathy Barris and myself just had a meeting with our school community liaison, Margarita Nieves, and we're going to get her back in a part-time position. She's had ongoing communication with our families. We are going to schedule and have scheduled 4 ELL parent advisory meetings to have that two-way communication and support from second language learner families and input how to improve our programming. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee? Let me just again thank you for your efforts in putting together to date the Immokalee program or potentially a replica of that. And obviously publicly thank Mr. McKenna and Senator Fatman's representative for joining you. So I know you're very busy, so to take away a couple days from the district is not easy. But based on your report, obviously it sounds like it was well worth it.
I could probably go on for 2 hours, and I just touched the surface on, I was beyond impressed.
Hearing no other comments or questions on the superintendent's report, unless Mrs. Perangeli and Mrs. Parmley have an issue and the members object, I'm going to take a few items out of order to be respectful of our student representative and our guests this evening. I'm just going to jump to item 3, student update. Logan Peranto. Good evening, Logan.
Good evening. I would like to start out by talking about University, which is a after-school program that is a great way to get caught up on missing work, study for tests, stay ahead on assignments, and get the tutoring you need to be successful this school year. It is held every Monday and Thursday. Also, SATs took place on Saturday, October 5th. For school clubs, the first meeting of the Medical Careers Club took place on September 25th. The Tech Support Club had an informal meeting on September 25th as well. The Diversity Tribe held their first meeting on September 26th and have started conversing about great ideas in new directions. The DECA Club held a meeting to discuss each member's roles in the upcoming competitions. The first competition will be on November 5th at Nichols College. For sports, the boys and girls soccer teams have played against Grafton, Millbury, Leicester, David Pratty, and Southbridge. The volleyball team had matches against Grafton, Oxford, Southbridge, Tantasqua, and Aspet Regional High School of Marlborough. The golf team had matches with Grafton, Millbury, Leicester, David Pratty, and Northbridge. The boys and girls cross country teams had meets with Grafton and Northbridge. And the football team had games against Murdoch and Lunenburg. And lastly, I would like to talk about how the National Honor Society started their chocolate bar fundraiser.
Did you get
Great
Dr.
sales so
Logan one,
far.
by the way?
What's up?
Did you get Dr. Logan one?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'll have to see her during the day. Besides that, I have nothing else. Any questions or comments?
How's the fundraiser going?
It's going good. A lot of good sales. We have 60 bars this year in each box. Sales have been great so far.
Might want to take a walk through our section.
I have to do that.
You may clean out your box. I'm not making any assumptions, but any other questions or comments from the members for Logan? Hearing none, good luck with your test tomorrow, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I'm just going to jump to item A under new business, approval of overnight field trip Bartlett Show Choir. Mr. Carney and his crew have requested an overnight field trip for November 8th and 9th, traveling to Oliver Ames High School in Northeaston. And based on what I read, is this basically a high school version of what we do for the junior high? Seems pretty cool. This is the first year? Yeah, please, I get yelled at if people don't talk into the mic, so. Yeah, I'm sorry, you have to turn the mic on, tip it close to you, make sure the green light.
We're not going to make this easy.
If you want it approved. Don't break it
Sing a
now.
solo. Hello, thank you very much for having me. You are correct that it is the high school version of what we do here. And they've had it for several years, but it's always at a time when I'm really digging into our competition show, and a lot of the schools that go there learn a fall show, and then they start their competition show like right after the festival. And so this year, I figured it would be a good year to actually collaborate with one of our competitors, Bishop Hendrick in Rhode Island. And so we are actually combining our groups together to actually perform at Oliver Ames at the Bay State Festival. It's not really a competition, it's more of a festival where all the groups come together, and each group gets split in half, and half learn one song in the choreography, and then the other half learns a different song in the choreography, and then all the schools and all the kids combine together for a ballad. And it is an amazing experience. I've watched it a few times, and I've always wanted to take the kids. It's a little bit on the expensive side. It's $35 per student, and that's again another reason why it's been something that I've wanted to do but never seemed to do, because funds are always a little bit tight for us. But this year, you know, with the help of the central office, we're getting a little bit more, so we're actually able to do that this year. So thank you very much for you know, like helping us out. It's very appreciated. And the reason why it's an overnight trip is because they work very hard. Like we're leaving at around 11 o'clock, and their rehearsal starts at 1. They're going from 1 to like 8 o'clock with a dinner break, and their meals are included in the $35 per student. And then there's a little event for them after 8 o'clock, and by the time they get out of there, drive home, and then they have to be back at like 8 o'clock the next morning. It's a long day, so I kind of want them to stay local. A lot of the schools that are even closer than us stay overnight in local hotels. So that's the reason why I want it to be an overnight trip. I don't want to kill the kids.
What do you say?
Or the parents.
Or the parents, yeah.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the members? And just for folks that might be watching, normally school committee does not approve field trips. Most of them are approved by the building principals and the superintendent. It is school committee policy that any field trip out of state or overnight does require our approval. So that is why you have the pleasure of sitting in front of us this evening.
I enjoy it.
What is the pleasure of the committee regarding Mr. Carney's request?
Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McCara.
motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Good luck, and I hope you guys, let's assume it's going to go well, but
Yeah,
It's
we
gonna
think
go-
about it.
I can't wait to see the two groups
Yeah.
on stage together. When we actually went to Bishop Hendricken for a practice in September.
Yeah.
And my cousin works down there. He had no idea I was going to be there. They had a faculty meeting. I saw him come out of the auditorium.
really?
He looks at me, he's like, "What are you doing here?" So,
Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, good, again, good luck.
thank you
luck.
very much.
Next item, again, I'm going to take out of order under new business, item D, concerned parent regarding preschool transportation. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Sure.
My name is Margaret Sear. I've talked to Ruth Ann Gogan and Monique Perangeli and Lori Glennon over the last several weeks. I'm sorry I'm chomping on a cough drop. I'm battling the end of a cold, and without a cough drop in my mouth, I have a persistent cough. So I'm sorry to it's probably amplified even with the microphone.
Not a problem.
But, okay, so I have two objectives for tonight. The first objective is that I'd like to appeal to the school committee to make a motion tonight to amend the transportation policy of the Webster Public Schools to allow for preschool students to ride the school bus to and from school with an older sibling if the parents have a extenuating circumstance in the home where they can't transport their pre-K kids to and from school. The second objective is I'd like to introduce a broader conversation about the transportation policy in Webster, because I think it's due for updating, an update / revision / evaluation / audit, depending on what we want to call it, done by the school committee, the superintendent, the business manager. I'd like to hear your perspective on that. So I'd like to go through sort of a personal narrative of why I'm here to talk about this tonight. Briefly, I have three students who attend St. Joseph School. We live in Webster, my husband and I, and our children, in one house. We live on the bus route. My older child rides the bus to and from school to St. Joseph School. My second two children are in preschool. I put them out, we live on the bus route. The bus route stops right at our driveway. I put the two younger kids out to ride the bus with her, which has been the custom at St. Joseph's, I think, for probably, the pre-K has been in existence for about 20 years. Other parents have told me when their kids were in pre-K and they had an older sibling, that was kind of the tradition, that their pre-K kids rode the bus with their older sibling to and from school. I thought I never heard anything against that or otherwise, so I did the same. First day of school, the preschool kids went with their sister. Second day of school, the bus driver said, "I can't accept your two younger kids. I'm only going to take your older child to school." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" So started with the bus company, called them and said, can you tell me what's going on here? My kids take the school bus to their field trips every year. They're in pre-K. They said, "Well, we don't bus pre-K kids." I said, "Well, yeah, you do. You bus them to for their field trips." So they said, "Well, you need to call the Webster Public Schools." So I called Webster Public Schools and they said, I talked to Monique and Monique said, "That's correct. It's not our policy. We don't bus pre-K students." And I said, "Well, can you make an exception?" I kind of went through the whole thing. So the hardship that we're dealing with in my home, it's a pretty extenuating circumstance. My 1-year-old has a lot of health problems. She has Down syndrome, she has a heart defect, and she has an early stage of leukemia. She was hospitalized twice last winter for respiratory illnesses, and I can't take her out during flu season to go pick up the other kids at school. I was relying on them to be able to ride the bus with their sister. So that's the narrative of why I'm here. I'd like to go through the reasons that have been given by Monique and Superintendent Gogan as to why we don't make exceptions to the policy. So first reason, and then I'd like to go through my response to those reasons. So the first reason is busing pre-K students is not our policy. We've never done that unless they have an IEP. So I asked for the transportation policy. and it's right here. It's one page, and it lists, kind of some, like an overview of what looks more to me like a vision statement than like a extensive policy. It lists out the legal references here, and at the bottom of the page, the date on it is from 2003, which I think is pretty old. I think this should be publicly available on the Webster Public Schools website, and I think it should have an addendum of sorts that mentions what the policy is regarding pre-K students, because there's nothing written about that. And I also think the entire thing should probably be reviewed, since it looks like the last time it was updated was 2003. I also think these legal references should be hyperlinked when it's posted to the Webster Public Schools website, so that a parent can read what the legalities are. So that's that. I also think it's not a good reason to kind of look backwards and say, well, we've never done that before. Shouldn't we be forward thinking? Like, I don't think because we've never done that before is a good reason not to do something. Okay, so that's reason one. That's my response. The other thing too is the date on this is 2003. Two of our preschools, which is now one school, St. Anne's and St. Louis, which is now All Saints Academy, started after 2000. Well, around St. Anne's was 2002, St. Louis was 2007. All Saints Academy, which is those two schools together, have 20 preschool students that reside in Webster. St. Joseph's has 15 that reside in Webster. Okay. So the second reason is, if we do it for your family, we have to do it for everyone. And we've said no to other families before that have had, health concerns or various things. And challenge that I have with that is, I don't know that it has to be all or nothing. I think when we deal with people, while we need policies and we need rules, we're also dealing with human beings that have extenuating circumstances. I don't know that a policy has to be all or nothing. Fourth reason, I was told that we have to comply with the guidelines from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration regarding busing pre-K students. So I have those guidelines, and they're right here. And they mention some sensible things, like if you're under a certain weight, you have to be in a restraint system, and there should be a monitor on the bus, similar to that of what's required in the classroom, student-to-teacher ratio. My issue with this is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, their guidelines were last updated in February of 1999. That's what it says on their website, which again, it's 20 years old. And I think in where there isn't mass law or federal law that prohibits the transportation of preschool students, like I mentioned, my pre-K kids take the bus on field trips. I think a parent should be able to waive guidelines that are 20 years old. Okay, and then the fifth reason is that it's a liability. So I've gotten permission from the transportation company that they would take both of my pre-K students if I signed a waiver releasing them from liability, which I've agreed. But I was told that the Webster Public Schools doesn't accept waivers. But I feel like that, sort of addresses the liability issue, is that if I've agreed to sign a waiver releasing them from liability, that should sort of be a response to that issue or concern. So those are the reasons. Those are the reasons that I've been given. Those are my responses to the reasons. I'm sort of tugging on your heartstrings that I'm dealing with a really tough situation here, and I'm requesting that you make a motion and second the motion to amend the transportation policy so that people dealing with extenuating circumstances can have their pre-K students ride the bus with an older sibling to and from school if they sign a waiver. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts on sort of the wider conversation of what we should do about the transportation policy, because in my view, it seems like it needs an update, it needs a refresh, it needs to be looked at, it should be evaluated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Let me just say, for myself, I'm very sorry for the struggles you're dealing with your youngest. As a parent, I know how challenging it is to have I only had 3, but 4 little ones, in addition to having one with a health issue. So please know that your family are in my thoughts and prayers.
Thank you.
Dr. Gogan or Mrs. Prangeli, did you want to provide any additional response?
I've had multiple.
We've talked many times, yes.
parts are said. Multiple, unfortunately, preschool busing issue. Many districts don't.
Excuse me, Dr. Gogan, you're,
I'm on now.
thank you.
Many districts don't bus preschool students unless they're on an IEP, as we have talked about, because it's a funding issue. And we did speak about that. And I know that you're asking the school committee tonight to consider that, but it is a major funding issue. And we do follow the guidelines that are given to us.
Are there, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I just want to, we do follow the Department of Education transportation guidelines that are set forth that mandates we transport students in grades K through 6 at least 2 miles or more. Webster does that plus some for our students here in town, locally, and for the public and private schools also in town. I have had requests in the past for preschool students, which have been denied, because we bus K through 6. If we have 40 students within our own preschool program that do not get bused, that are required, parents are required to drive their students to and from school. If you add on 35 students at the parochials, you're looking at another 2 buses just to be able to get those kids to and from school. As far as your comments about them being bused in the past, they should not have been bused. I do know that, saying this delicately, they have been told to just go out and stand and get on the bus without us being aware who they are. And then once we find out, because we do check after the first couple of days, the beginning of the school year, you're not really sure who's on a stop and who's, I have had that conversation with the parochial schools before and made them very aware that we don't transport pre-K students to and from school. So, I understand it's a difficult situation. My heart goes out to you and your family. But we've had these requests before, and I've had to say no for the overall well-being of the district.
Are there any questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McCara?
So I'll just say, I mean, obviously, we all understand. We've all had children, grandchildren. Some of us have had, oh. You want some water?
You want some water?
Want some water? It's not working? Because it gets dry in here, too. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
Plus, we're very dry, so that
Yeah,
makes
we're
it
dry,
worse.
too, so, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, and as somebody who recently went through cancer treatments, I'm especially sensitive to that as well, so. My concern, what I focus on is the safety. Our primary job as a school district, I mean, above the education is the safety of just under 2,000 kids in our care every day. So, our primary role is safe education. So, I mean, I can't help think about toddlers, the youngest kids, who, when we transport them under normal circumstances, we all use.
So sorry.
No, it's not your fault. No need to apologize. We all use car seats. To, my grandson, when he comes with us, man, we better use that car seat. And of course, it's a smart thing to do. So I would have difficulty knowingly putting a toddler or preschooler on a school bus with no restraints at all. To me, in my mind, I can't wrap my head around that on a safety issue. Aside from the money issue, as a school committee, we deal with the money issues all the time in trying to find ways to do things and to the best of our ability. So, for the right reasons, we'll always try to find. But again, I for my own personal reason, I mean, I come back to the safety issue of even if you are willing to sign a waiver to put your child on the bus, and even if the bus company is saying that they won't accept, that they will accept the waiver, if God forbid, something happened, I don't think that waiver would be worth the paper it's written on, and I think the bus company would be liable, but certainly the school district would be liable. And if we knowingly put those kids on the bus, we should be liable. I mean, we're the adults, we should be responsible. So that's my own personal feeling, is a safety issue that kind of trumps everything. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McCara. Any other questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think my concern is who and how do we determine these extenuating circumstances for, like, what's the leveling? And, I think it just opens the door for people to maybe have to say yes to everybody, because people will have an extenuating circumstance to present, and then it's going to be up to somebody to judge the severity of that extenuating circumstance. And I think that it would just open the door, and if we can just go by the guidelines and the regulations that we have, then that's what we should do. And I don't know if if you've looked into any other options, such as private transportation for the kids,
Is that a question?
or could it be a consideration, like other, or carpooling with another family?
Yeah, I think sometimes when people suggest that, and I don't mean this to sound offensive, but I think sometimes when people suggest that, they kind of forget the modern world that we live in. Most people in my support network work. I mean, I don't think any of you could take like 2 hours out of your day to go pick up a neighbor's kid or babysit a neighbor's kid, and keep your job. I can succeed in spite of this, if that's what you're asking. But it is upsetting that as a taxpayer and a homeowner in town, I have a service that I pay for that literally stops in my driveway. Both of my kids are second-year pre-K kids. One of them is already 5. He's the age of a kindergartner. Again, I'm tugging on your heartstrings because, I think the other thing too is, if you're a parent like me, how would you even know? There's nothing here. Like, there's nothing on the website. Where does it say we don't bus pre-K kids until you go through the whole thing I went through? If I put the kids out there and then, well, what do you mean you're not going to take them? I call, I've been working on this since August 29th. It's been 6 weeks. So I think that's where my
Fair point.
introduction to, I think that the whole transportation policy needs a revisit, needs an evaluation, needs an audit, needs to be, how would anybody know this?
There is information on the school website.
Not about pre-K.
It says we transport kindergarten through 6.
Okay. But again, how would a parent know that that means we exclude pre-K, we don't bus pre-K, until you go through the exercise I just went through? You wouldn't. And I relied on this because that has been the tradition at St. Joe's. I relied on this for this school year.
Did they take it last year as well?
No, I drove them last year. They were little last year. They're 5 and 4 this year. They're older. They have a whole year of school experience.
Any other questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think first and foremost, just like the other members have said, I feel for you, and I'm sorry for what your family's going through, sincerely. I can't agree enough with Mr. McCara regarding the safety issue. My little guy's 5 and is in kindergarten this year, and I'm still cringing thinking about him being on the school bus, but I understand,
I can
right?
appreciate that, but school buses are afforded rules of the road that cars aren't, right? They have protection rules of the road that cars don't have. So, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So going back to the safety issue, I can't agree enough with that. And thinking of the policy piece, I agree with you that we could work a little bit on beefing up that policy, but I still believe that we're following, the guidelines that are set forth, and maybe we don't go out of our way to specifically say we're excluding preschool children, but it does sound like it's pretty clear that, you know, kindergarten through sixth, and even we go a little bit beyond that in busing older children and even kids that live a little closer to the school than what is recommended, I think. And even just talking with some of my friends with kids in school, we're one of the few districts that isn't charging families, right, for a school bus.
Yeah,
And that's something that I think in years past, we all sort of assumed was part of being a taxpayer and something that was afforded to us as a resident in a certain community. But even that has gone by the wayside in recent years, and whether it's that or the sports and, you know, all these other things that we're trying to provide for the kids. I really hope that you're able to find something in your support network that will help you through this.
Any other questions or comments from the members? So as a parent, obviously, I completely understand where you're coming from. And your most important concern is your family and your children, as it should be. And I appreciate actually you presenting your, you know, potential motion or your thought as looking at extenuating circumstances by just not saying, but to Mrs. Naparato's point, that then you have to define those. What we have to do, from my perspective, I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee. What I have to do when I walk through that door is I have to take off my parent hat and I have to make decisions and have opinions based on what I believe is in the best interest, first and foremost, of all children. And then secondly, from a budget standpoint, we do have very long, difficult discussions about how are we going to spend the taxpayer money because we can't fund everything. And so that's been very, you can ask Dr. Gogan, that's been very challenging for me at times when my kids were in school, was to able to leave the parent hat at the door. Because first and foremost, we're all concerned about our own children. So looking at it more globally from the perspective of the entire district, again, I do agree with my colleagues from a safety standpoint, first and foremost, putting 3 and 4 year olds, and I understand one of your,
5 and 4.
okay, but most preschoolers, that would include 3 and 4 year olds if we change the current policy on a traditional large yellow school bus. The policy that you do refer was last updated back in 2003. We do have an additional policy, which again, you did not have until this evening. And that was last updated in 2015. And that actually specifies in more detail what the district rules, so to speak, are. So we have looked at it within, and it may sound like a long time, but in the world of school committees and policies, unless there's something dramatic that changes, whether it's a new law, a new regulation, or a new best practice, the policies are typically vague as a guideline, and they're used as a reference for the administrators to then implement in procedures and day-to-day activities. So the last time that we looked at this as a committee and made changes was in 2015. With regards to, I agree
Still
with,
doesn't say anything about preschool on here, though, this 2015.
I understand it, but it says we bus kindergarten on. So I guess I understand your point. We could amend it and say we don't bus pre-K.
Or just put a note on the website so people know. I mean, how would a parent, how, you know?
I mean, under the business office, if you click on departments, you go to business office, you go on transportation, it does list this. It may not say no pre-K, and that may be
Doesn't.
something we can add to it. But when we look at these policies and guidelines and the procedures, again, we have to look at the entire district. So to Mrs. Perangeli's comment, in order for us to make a proposed change, in my opinion, it would have to be all or nothing. And therefore, now we're looking at adding transportation for roughly 75 to 80 kids. And we go above and beyond. I just want folks to know that we do, I believe, go above and beyond, not just what the state requires, as you know, but we also go above and beyond what most districts in Massachusetts and in Central Mass are doing. Most districts, as Mrs. Siddiqui referred to, they're charging kids for transportation. They're charging kids to play athletics. They're charging kids even to park their car at the high school. We don't charge a dime for anything. So again, none of what I'm saying is affecting your family or your world. But looking at it from the perspective of, you know, in order to implement a change, which I believe would have to be for all preschool students, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. that we don't currently have. Unfortunately, and this may have been shared with you, I'm not sure, this has nothing to do with your circumstance, the state changed the law on the way districts are reimbursed for foster care last year. And so we ended up having a deficit in our transportation budget last fiscal year of over $200,000 that was completely unexpected. So not only did we have to make up for that deficit last year, we had to budget that into this year's budget. Again, I know in your world, none of what I'm saying should apply because you're primarily focused on your family as you should be. I'm just trying to share with you what my thoughts have been for the last couple of days, especially after you and I spoke. And, those are the reasons why personally I would agree with what we've done to date, which is the policy that's outlined in the Walker and Riders policy.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Continuing on with the agenda, I will jump back to item 3, superintendent's report. Under item 3, the next item is the business manager report. Good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee. First item on the agenda is the FY20 budget update. In your packet, you should have received a copy of the budget year to date as through September 30th. It was in your packet, I believe? Yes, it's in your packet.
Oh, I apologize. It's out of order. I'm joking.
Out of order. No.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm out of order. I was trying to bring this
Mr.
little
Chairman,
levity
you're out
back.
of order.
Yeah, well, you have no idea.
So if you want to take, there should be nothing alarming, and there isn't anything alarming in the first quarter budget update. You will notice that in the encumbrance requisition column, you see a bunch of negatives there. That is because the town has not closed out the prior fiscal year yet in our accounting system. So that's how it carries forward the encumbrances until we can close it out and filter out the report. But right now, we are status quo. Everything is as we projected. The one area that I'm really watching is, again, our special ed tuition. The last projection that I've seen, we were right on target with no increases. So we were right even with we budgeted. We didn't have any wiggle room in there at all. We were even. Ms. Barris has recently spoke to me and said there may be a couple of outplacements in the near future. So we're keeping a close eye on that because we don't have a lot of wiggle room in that line. But other than that, everything looks pretty well. I'm not going to go through this. It's early on in the budget season. I will be making salary to salary transfers for salary savings that we've seen, and now that we've shifted staff and everybody's in their positions for the year, so that you have a better idea when you look at Park Ave grade 1 and we're halfway through the year. It's a real balance that you're seeing there. We should be at 50%. So I will be doing that shortly. We're seeing, I think we have about $50,000 currently in salary savings. That being said, we have still a couple of vacant positions we'll be looking for, so, that sometimes doesn't get us very far as we move through the season. And I'm hopeful that with that salary savings, and new positions coming up, that might be applied to our tuitions if needed down the road. So we'll keep that in our hat for future reference. But if there's no questions on the budget, I will give one more update on our cherry sheet and our update for town meeting. On the 21st, Monday night, we have town meeting. The town will be going forward and increasing their budget. As you recall, when we were working on our budget, at the time we went forward, we were using the governor's proposal. At the end, we made an agreement with the town that the school department would get the first $40,000 of any increase in funds, and then after that, it would be split 70-30 with the town. So after looking at our pluses and minuses, we had additional revenues in the amount of $365,743. But we also had increase in our expenses and our offsets, our sending tuitions of about $117,536. So that gives a net revenue for the town of Webster in $248,207. We get the first $40,000 off of that. So, and then after that, the remainder balance is split 70-30. So the school department's portion is gonna be $185,745, and the town's portion is gonna be $62,462.10. So in the town budget, we're a one line item in there. And so he'll just add that to the school department appropriation, and he'll put his appropriation in his lines. We will have to come back at the meeting, the next meeting, and decide where we're gonna put that. I think I'll probably just make the recommendation that we put that right in tuition, right off the bat. And, you know, hopefully that'll cover us as we move through the year. And any surpluses down the road, we can decide what to do with of that. But that's where we stand now with our budget for FY20. Are there any questions? No? Okay. Next item on the agenda is our boiler project update. So I was on a call with Green Communities, the company, or the grant, I should say. The company is Guardian, and they work for Green Communities grants. And Doug Willitson was on the call, talking about when we are hoping to move forward with our boiler project. Guardian informed us that the grants came out a month and a half, 2 months later than normal, so they will not be able to do it before the heating season. So we are down to one boiler, and fingers crossed, hopefully that gets us through the heating season. We actually had to completely take our boiler one offline as it failed inspections, and so it was either repair or take it offline. The repair would have been at least, I want to say, up to $30,000 just to repair the boiler. So we made the decision to take that offline, knowing that we're going to be moving forward with the boiler project. There is an additional, I think I reported to you last time, an additional $53,000 that was needed for the project. The town administrator does have an article on the town, regular town meeting to take $53,000 from some surplus that was left in the Park Ave project and apply that to the boiler project. So the school department will be responsible for the removal of the old boiler. Eventually, there will be 5 or 6 boilers, they're saying right now, that'll replace the one boiler that's there. They're much smaller in size, more efficient. And so this grant only includes one boiler. So they're recommending that down the road, they do it in 2 phases. They initially said we'll do it over the next 3 years, but now that we don't have the backup boiler, going 3 or 4 years without a boiler, having that redundancy is a little nerve-wracking, and they were a little concerned about that. But that's a different discussion. Moving ahead as a second phase, that's a little bit down the road, a year down the road. So we're initially just focusing on this boiler. The school department is responsible for the destruction, the removal of the current boiler. Initial estimates were anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, which I budgeted for this year to remove that boiler. There was some concern. They want to test for asbestos just to make sure there's nothing inside the boiler as they start ripping it apart. If that's the case, then our 10 to 15 is now 25 to 30,000. Mr. Willitson, you know, we were hoping to find out today if there was any signs of asbestos in there. I haven't heard from them. But if there is, he is willing to amend the article to increase the amount of money that would be put in so we can remove the boiler. That's where we stand right now. So we'll keep our fingers crossed as we move through the heating season that we don't have any issues. Knock on wood, this has been a good boiler. that we've got running, so we haven't really had any issues with that one. All the problems have been with the second boiler, so we'll be hopeful.
So I'm confused, but it may be too many hockey pucks to the head. You mentioned the grant only pays for one boiler, yet the replacement would be 4, 5, or 6 boilers.
So we were gonna do it over a period of time in multiple phases.
So they'll only pay for one of the new ones?
The grant is up to 100,000.
Okay,
So that'll cover one, and because of the additional looping and the piping work that we're having initially, that's why it came in over at 153.
but would that one boiler that they pay for heat the entire school if necessary?
Not, no. So that's gonna work in conjunction with the boiler that we have. So it'll run and it'll maybe take like 20%
Oh, I see.
of the
Okay.
activity off of the main
So in
boiler.
order to in order to have a backup boiler that's fully functional, now I get it, you're talking truly 3 or 4 years.
Yes. So the recommendation of the company is initially this was gonna be like a 3-year. You know, we would apply year after year and see, knowing that in the first year it was gonna cost us more because they've gotta redo all the plumbing and the piping, right? So then the second year they can come in, it's basically just putting the boiler in and attaching it. There's no additional work to be done. So they were hopeful that we could do that over the next 3 years, every year, get a grant. But without the redundancy, without the backup boiler, that kind of speeds things up, you know? So, you know, we were having the conversation, you know, they're recommending we do it in 2 phases. This is phase 1. They're recommending next phase, you go in and you ask for all the remaining, knowing that the grant's not gonna cover all of that. You know, but then on the flip side of things, you know, do we wait for the project where we are getting, that's part of our scope in the project for the high school, that's 76% reimbursed. Where do you flip the coin?
But should we, and perhaps it's too late because they may have already approved articles, should we have asked for more money from town meeting and added 2 boilers this time?
We couldn't go back and change the scope that was already approved.
Oh, but it was the grant scope that
Yeah,
determined, okay.
so we couldn't go back and change that scope. So this would have to be a whole separate process
But it could have been potentially a separate article.
to fund a whole nother boiler.
Correct.
We could have, yes. We could have. But we just found this out this week,
Okay, yep.
on Monday. So that's where we stand with the boiler. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for the heating season, hope for a mild season. I did ask about backup, if something should happen, am I shutting down the school? How quickly can we have turnaround for heat and stuff? So they were confident that, you know, in an emergency situation, they could have a quick 24, 48-hour turnaround to have heat in the building, so. But hopefully it won't get to that. We'll be in good shape,
But you should have a plan.
and we should have a plan. So if there's no questions on the boiler, I will move on to the next good news I have. A special ed transportation. So I needed to inform you that I had to add another bus for transportation at Park Ave. It actually is doing 2 routes. For the price they offered to do 2 routes, they're picking up on Middle School and Park Ave. We currently had on the bus 33 students on the special ed bus. It was taking up to 2 hours to get these kids home. Kids are not supposed to be on the bus for more than an hour. We gave it a week or 2 just to see if, you know, as routes pick up and people get on and off. Kids were leaving Park Ave at 3:15, I think, by the time the bus would leave, and they're getting home at 10:05. So we could not do that. We weren't in compliance with the time. So what I had to do was, we've got another route for Park Ave, so we've split the town, basically. I've got a smaller bus doing from the highway on, because that's really where you see the time going. You know, a lot of these students live in this area, which is easier to drop on and pick up. So that's just doing from the highway on that part, saved the route about 40 minutes. So it's moving much faster. Kids are getting in and out in under an hour now. The other side of town is getting in and out in under an hour, and that bus is also helping out with the middle school. The cost of that bus is $320 a day, which is going to add another $50,000 to our transportation budget, which is already very tight. So we're watching it closely, but there was really nothing I could do in regards to that. We can't have kids on the bus for more than an hour, and an hour and a half and 2 hours for those little guys is just, it's too long. We can't have that. So I just wanted to give you that update, that we've got an additional bus on the road. We did rectify the problem, but there is a cost to that. So I'll be working and keeping a close eye on that. Any questions?
Any questions or comments for Mrs. Perangeli? Hearing none, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Principal Report, Robin Parmley, Park Avenue Elementary School. Good evening, Mrs. Parmley.
Good evening. How are you?
We're well, thank you.
So we have been just busy at Park Avenue, and we started off with our open house, which was a huge success. We had hundreds of people coming through. We had also had our glacier, our polar bear mascot, and Gigi, our ST Math mascot, going through the building, so lots of picture opportunities. But it was just really wonderful to see the parents coming out, meeting the teachers, checking out all the wonderful programs that are already in progress at Park Avenue. Had some really delightful conversations with parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles, and just really positive. A lot of great positivity out in the community, and we just got a lot of wonderful feedback from these families that are excited to have their kids at Park Ave. We've just finished up our iReady for math and ELA and our Dibbles benchmarks, where we really try to find a baseline for our K through grade 4 students. Where are they at? Where are the deficits? And then what do we need to do with that to close those achievement gaps? So after we got our results back at each grade level, the grade level teams were then tasked at their data meeting and their next 2 CPTs, which is their common planning time, to really dive into the data that they got and to break it down and to really try to figure out strategic action steps that they could take as a grade level to be able to address the needs that we saw. I have to say that, I had asked for all of these in to me by Friday, and the thought that went into it was very impressive. I could tell, first of all, not only was it the teachers, our ELL teachers, our special educators, everybody came together and went round table and really just began to, tear apart possibilities and layers of how they're going to meet that. So now the next step will be to really give them kind of time frames so that we can touch base and make sure those are actually happening. But I have to say, I'm just so proud of my staff. They've just started off the year in such an amazingly positive, high-energy note, and they're just ready to tackle the year. I'm sorry, my voice keeps going in and out. We've also started a new program, and I'll just pass that. One of the pieces that's dear to my heart is being a safe and supportive school, understanding that students all come to school with all different challenges, kind of backgrounds, areas of need, and understanding for elementary students that the academic day can be very long and demanding, and sometimes students developmentally could use a break. So we've started our Compass program, and we have a facilitator that is directly under the consult of one of our adjustment counselors and the administration, and teachers were able to identify students who could use those breaks in order for them to go. They actually have 1 to 2 breaks a day. It's a 5-minute time that they bump in. They get to have choice whether it's a quiet activity or if it's a high energy activity, depending on the need. We also have some sensory items. And at the same time, they're processing out. They're talking about their days. And when they enter the classroom, the phrase they use when they match the teacher's eyes as they enter the classroom door is, "I'm ready to learn." So the goal is to reset and to really proactively give students what they need. So if they're kind of bubbling up, sometimes children may have behaviors just because they're either dealing with anxiety or maybe they're about to jump into a subject that's difficult for them. So the teachers have been really so keyed in on those opportunities of when to give students breaks. But at the same time, we don't want them living in this place called Compass. We want them back in their classroom because you can't teach empty seats. So what we have found, it's been very positive. We're taking data and we're going to be looking at it on a regular basis, what's working, what's not working. The transitions back and forth have been very positive. So, and the feedback that we're getting from staff is very positive. But what's the most exciting is to see the students skipping down the hallway with their Compass pass. It's something they look forward to. And you'll say, where are you headed? I'm headed to Compass. And they're excited, but then they're excited to get back to their class and get on track. And then last but not least, and I'll send this around, kind of on that same mindset of being supportive to students proactively and building community. As you know, Park Avenue is a large school, lots of students, and sometimes some of our students are transient. So we really want to build community within the classrooms, and one of the ways that we're doing that this year is with Responsive Classrooms morning meeting, so that they will start and they will have a greeting where they make eye-to-eye contact, they know each other's name, they have a message in which, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of water so I don't cough.
Something on that side of the room.
Yeah.
I know. Part of the message that the teacher gives launches then into the academic arena of how the day starts. And then there's also a time for children to share out. It takes approximately 20 to 25 minutes. It kicks off the morning. It's school-wide. And we were able to model this all last year through our kid college, and this year also through our school-wide meeting, Polar Plunge. So the students are very familiar with what morning meeting looks like. And starting this Thursday, we will be having our first 8-week voluntary book club for staff to come so that I can train them on the elements of it. And I wasn't sure, what the response would be. Usually you cut it off at 12. I had 17 teachers sign up immediately. And so what my hope is to do is to provide training to Dr. Mackay and to Deb Zablocki and to, I believe, Lauren Galati. And we will have additional multiple studies going on throughout the year to be able to provide support to teachers in this area. So we're excited. Got a lot going on.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Parmley?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mrs.
In reading the description of the Compass program, I like how every classroom is going to have that space within their classroom for students to go to first.
Yes.
And then, if need be outside of the classroom.
Absolutely. So that's part of being safe and supportive, is providing those spaces, the kind of a quiet space. Students just need a break. They can just let their teachers know. And within those spaces might be like a bean bag, a reflection sheet, maybe a book, something sensory, kind of whatever they need. And then we also have this. So kind of like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
And I like how it's the expectation for all classrooms to have that space. So it's not, pick or choose.
No.
The expectation is that this is just what we do.
This is what we do. This is who we are, and it's the polar bear way. Yep.
I think we all need to adopt the polar bear way.
Absolutely.
The world would be a much better place, wouldn't it?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sorry.
I just want to add to that, self-care is something that's so often overlooked, not just for our little people, but for those of us adults as well. And starting off very young, teaching kids that it's okay to need a couple minutes to reset is hopefully going to set them up for success as they proceed through their academic career and wherever else they go in life. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, thank you very much. Continuing on with the agenda under old business monthly report on fundraising applications. Again, it is school committee policy to review all the fundraising applications that have been approved the previous month. We do not approve fundraisers. That is done by the building principal and the superintendent. It looks like the student council is having their annual Krispy Kreme donut drive. They're also going to be doing a teacher turkey fundraiser. Not even going to ask for specifics on that one. The DECA Club is going to be selling clothing and food throughout the year to raise money. The chair team is selling long and short sleeve T-shirts, class of 2022. Man, I never thought I'd say the class of 2022, right? And actually, isn't the class of 2023 freshmen this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Sorry, class of 2022 is having a pie fundraiser, and the Music Boosters is doing a cornhole tournament. The Music Boosters is also, or had, I should say, a psychic medium event. And the Music Boosters will be selling T-shirts, jackets, and sweatshirts throughout the year. And then the Music Boosters are selling, you guys need to help me, Pura Vida? Did I get it right?
Yes.
Must be cool bracelets, but I guess I should be more fashion. No wonder my wife's always upset because I'm not into fashion, but they will be selling Pura Vida bracelets. Music Boosters are also doing Five Below.
It's a store.
It's a store. Thank you very much. Mrs. Blythe, you should do this for me. They will also be playing their instruments and singing carols at Barnes & Noble on December 7th. If anyone wants to go to Barnes & Noble, a portion of the sales will be given to the Music Boosters. And then they are also participating in the Scarecrow fundraiser at Bemis Farms in Spencer on several dates in September and October. And the Music Boosters are selling butter braid. I believe that's butter. And then, as Logan mentioned, the National Honor Society is selling chocolate bars, and we will be taking orders after the meeting for the central office. So the reason why we came up with this policy is so that the public is aware of the fundraisers that are going on. And all fundraisers that have been approved are also posted on our website once they are approved by the superintendent. Any questions or comments on the monthly report on fundraising applications? Once again, we thank all of the groups and booster clubs and staff and parents who help support our students in all their activities. Continuing under new business, the next item under new business is approval of job description, academic intervention specialist. Dr. Gogan.
Thank you. As you know, we have academic intervention specialists at Park Avenue and Webster Middle School. We are looking to fill an academic intervention specialist position that was vacant. It was primarily a reading position. We'd like to turn that into a mathematics position, and this is a new job description for that position. This is funded through Title I grants. The academic interventionist works especially close with the building administration and the district curriculum office, faculty, and parents. And as you can see, the description of the basic functions and responsibilities are listed, and I am seeking approval for this tonight.
Any questions or comments from the members regarding the proposed academic intervention specialist mathematics job description? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. The next item under new business, wellness policy ADF, first reading. I believe we will table that for a future meeting.
Yes.
That concludes new business. Under review, the next item on the agenda, I'm sorry, is review transfer signing of bills, payroll, and vouchers. We do have a request, and I will entertain a motion. It is a request from Bartlett High School to transfer $17,180.88 from the Bartlett High School student activity checking account to the Bartlett High School student activity savings account to the Bartlett High School student activity checking account.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Abstain.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Siddiqui.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Lori, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.